August 8th, 1984. This is Joe Todd, an interview with Mr. Howard James Holdge. Mr. Holdge, where were you born?
I was born in Frederick, Oklahoma, 1909.
When's your birthday?
24th of May.
And tell us again who
Who's father?
My father was Jim Holdge. He wasn't Jim, but he's James Stewart Holdge.
And your mother?
Mother, she was Tiny White before she married my dad.
Okay.
And where was your father born?
He was born over about Ada, Oklahoma.
Did they ever say
How come they moved out to Frederick?
No, really, when I left there, I went out to Frederick. I was born out there. He was born down here somewhere. I don't know just exactly. Don't remember. I got a brother Ted over there.
And how come you moved back east?
Well, my dad liked to farm, and he went down by Deer, north of Deer, and worked for John and Jerry Hood on a big ranch for 4 or 5 years, I think, before he got to farming for himself. And then he went to farming. He was a farmer from then on. Farmed up to 1926. Then we was eat us up down there one year we'd spend the crop and the next year we'd make it back. So I decided to come to western Oklahoma in 1926. So I had a good saddle pony and I couldn't get much for him down there. So I just rode my horse out to this country. Rode from Deer Ranch, 19 mile north of Deer Ranch in the dark on the horse. They got a truck moved out. We picked cotton around down at Darko that fall. Late that fall, we rained a place north of Washita from Johnny Boydston. And my dad made a whale of a cotton crop that year. It made over a bale of cotton per acre. On his 19th bale of cotton, he hauled to the Washita gin. He was there early, and he emptied a sack of cotton when they fired up. Then his team jumped, and he fell off the back of his wagon and killed him. So it was left up to me kind of take over.
What year was that?
1927.
27.
1927. And then we made a crop there the following year, in 27 and 28. And then 29, I got married off and started from myself.
What was your wife's name?
Eileen
What was her maiden name?
Eileen Lynn. And in 1929, I worked for a car over east of Anadarko, 2 miles east of Anadarko. I was getting $2 a day, and she was getting $1.50 a day to do the cooking. There's just this man and his 2 little boys. And we was getting $3.50 a day that way in our board. That was in 1929. In the fall, late in 29, I moved up to Baoni. I made a pair of shirt crop in 1930. Had 30 acres of cotton. Make 3/4 of a bale an acre. The cotton was worth 4 cents a pound. We picked the first bale, taken it on and ginned it. Paid half of it for the rent, and we didn't have enough money to get us a bill of groceries. So I went back, the man that I farmed with went on a note for $50 for me to make a crop on. I tried to sell him this cotton crop for the $50. No, he didn't want it. He wanted me to get it. And I said, I ain't no way I can get it. It was on new land, and the cotton burnt a little, but it was good cotton. I could get out in better cotton for 2 bits a 100 and make more than I put in my own cotton in paying half. I set up with that guy till 12 o'clock that night before I got that $50 note out of him, but I wouldn't let him go to bed till he promised to give me my note for the cotton crop. So I got it and moved out and got me a job picking cotton 50 cents a 100. Well, we done fairly well. We got by. But during that spring, Maxine, my daughter, was born there on this place. I believe it's 12th of April, 1930. And so we moved back. That was west of Pony. So we moved back down here at Washita. And I started working around here and there and finally got a WPA job in later years. And every time I'd get a check, I'd buy me a horse or something, or some hornet.
What did you do for the WPA?
I was a foreman for WPA. I hung steel in gun sheds at Fort Sill. I hung steel in utility yards and 3 big gun sheds. I was a foreman down there. And I'd take my wife to work out too. And we finally picked us up 4 good young horses. And we've got a snow team of broke down mules to break them with. And we went to farming. We farmed south of Hog Creek for 2 years. And I bought a farm over here on the river. And we went to rebuilt a house. And we lived down there for several years. Then I bought one, been 2 mile and a half, 2 mile north of it, which is one we already live in here now. Then I turned around in 1970 and I bought another across the river. Good Indian place. It was back when the Indians, you put a bid in on the farm, if you was $1 over the man, you got it. But now you can be $1,000 over him and they still auction it off, and you might have to pay several $1,000s more. It's different from what it was then. But anyway, I've got the good farm over there. Don't owe nobody nothing. Living good. And so as far as I know, I'm in pretty good health up to now. I'm hoping.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Tell me again about the chores you did as a little boy on the farm.
Okay, when I was a small kid, I grew up. My job was to get in the stove wood when I was a little boy. I had to see to that. And my brother Ted older, he take the firewood in. That was during the winter time. But in the spring, summer, why it'd have been either one of us get in the stove wood, but that was our choice. In later years, we never milked cows back in the day, just milked enough for our own use. I didn't know what a cream separator or nothing like that was them days. But later years, after I got married, I got into cattle business. We milked cows for a living. We stole this girl, she wouldn't hand the milk. And a daughter next to her was an excellent milker. Either one of them could milk, feed a cat out there 15 foot. and James, the boy I lost, was excellent milker. The 2 younger ones, I'd say, been a darn days that they grew up without getting in on that hard work. But the 3 olds got initiated to it. And we milked them for a living, and everybody got along good.
When you were on the farm, small kid, you plow with horses or mules?
I started with horses. I bought 4 young horses. Never seen nothing but a man up in the road. Wild, they have them pretty ornery. Then I bought me a team of old mules and broke down. And I broke them young horses with them. And as soon as I got them broke before we could work them, my wife worked them just the same as I did. We've had a lot of runaways. I don't know how we lived through them, but we did. I can recall one time I was working this bigger team, brown horses, And when one of them wanted to go to running, he'd spread out. And when I started down this hill, and Eileen, she was in front of me, and this team went spreading out, and I knew I was fixing to have a runaway, but I couldn't make her hear. My team run over hers, just rolled them cultivators to pieces. And we both got out alive without getting hurt. I don't know how we done it, but we didn't. We got jammed up maybe a little, stove up, but we didn't get hurt seriously. And we caught them horses, got them all, and the harness picked up late in the evening. And then after we made good crop, we made a real good crop. And then that fall, I bought a tractor. I bought my first tractor, it was a little VAC case tractor. It was a little 2-row tractor, but it actually wouldn't do much more than a good team would, but still I had a tractor. So we moved, when we bought this farm over here, that's what we moved over here with, them 4 head of horses and that little tractor. Then I leased some land around. I had a farm up back over here, I expect about 4 miles. And we run peanut deal came in, and I went into peanut business strong. I put 100 and some odd acres on one place up there, and I had this place leased across from this home place. We didn't live here then, we was leasing it. We lived on the river. I had this place and I had that one. I had sharecroppers on here and I had sharecroppers over there. Do you remember? And I was considered the peanut king that year. I sold a lot of peanuts. I was top man, top dog.
How many did you sell that year?
I actually just can't hardly figure it all out. I hadn't thought about it. But
What year was that?
that was about 44. I was peanut king of Caddo County that year.
You know what, Daddy? We didn't work with tractors or anything. We had horses, and we had to shake those peanuts by hand.
Yeah,
And we had to haul them peanuts to the thrasher that sat in the middle of the field.
we had a tractor, all right.
Yeah, we had a tractor, but we worked most
we
of them
worked a lot with the horses.
with the horses.
And I had sharecroppers too, and we'd all get together. We had our own thrashing. I had our own thrasher and everything. So we started out the hard way, but we kind of gained up.
Mm-hmm. How does a sharecropping system work?
I furnish everything. I furnish the seed. If it's teams, I furnish a team. If it's a tractor, I furnish tractors. They make a crop. I pay for everything up to there, and then get half of the crop. Whatever's sold, if it's a bale of cotton sold, if it brings $100, I get half of it. He gets half of it. If a ton of peanuts brings 200, I'll get 100. He gets 100. That's the way it works.
Did Roosevelt stop the sharecropping system?
Well, I don't believe so. I think more or less the people stopped themselves. I think people got a little more independent. I know I did. I sharecropped. And sharecropping is pretty near out of line anymore. Now, you've got a point there because they went into this government deal. And they put a lot of that land in the government and draw their payments. So I would say that might be 90% of it.
How were you affected when Roosevelt plowed the cotton under?
Well, I plowed up cotton, and really I think it helped me because I got this much out of it without ever doing harvesting or anything.
So you were paid for the cotton you plowed up?
Yeah, I got paid for it. Yeah, I did.
Okay. Was that under the New Deal? Was that?
Well, it was under, yeah, it would be under that New Deal way back here. And then they, after that first year with the plow up, then they went giving us a certain amount to plant. We went into acreage base, and which could still sell it, some of it to the government. So I'll say the government really helped the farmers, 100%. I sure do. I think a lot of us, maybe we might not be where we were at if the government hadn't stepped in and taken.
Back when you were plowing with the horses, did you prefer plowing with the horses or the mules?
Well, mules is tougher, and they was easier to handle than horses, but I just kind of like the horses a little bit the best. But now horses is easy to excite. You take an old mule, you can run him up the side of a freight train, and he's liable to never booger at it. But you liable to have to whoop that horse to get him up there. They just got much more spirit than a mule. Now that's what I said.
How many acres would you plow in one day with the horses?
I've had teams I could step them over 10 acres a day, and that's considered top teams too. If you get 7, that was a pretty good day.
What kind of horses were they?
Well, there's what you'd call a purchased horse. There's big horses, but I preferred the trim-built big horse. I didn't like the old blocky type. I wanted something that had some legs under him where you could reach out there and get on down the line. And if he didn't have a little spirit to him, I didn't want him. I wanted to drop of your hat.
Where'd you start to school?
Well, I started when I was about 6 years old at Fort Washita School down in Bryan County.
Where's that school located?
From Durant, it'd be 19 miles northwest of Durant.
Ever go back? Oh, go ahead.
That was called the old Fort Washita Schoolhouse then. And when I started there, I went there 1 year, or 2 years maybe, to that old schoolhouse. They built a new school a mile south of it. And the old schoolhouse is still, the place is still out of the watermark, but the new one is in part of Lake Texoma now, on the northeast corner.
How far was that from Fort Washita, the old post?
Well, when we left that country, we was joining the old Fort Washita place just across the section.
Ever go to the old fort?
Oh yeah, I was down there far back.
What was left of it when you first moved down there?
Well, when I left down there, it was just the old Fort Washita. There's a military graveyard there, and then these old buildings. There's still a bunch of the old chimneys to these buildings there. See, that was where they had the Civil War. And when I was a teenager, a little kid, there's one place there at the old fort had a little draw. We called it a little canyon then, but it's just a draw run through it. I've seen the time that you could pick a half-a-gallon bucket of nothing but lead, just pick it up and fill it up. I remember when I was a kid, I'd get a gallon bucket of it and couldn't carry it. And that's how they was down there around the old fort. And,
You still have any of them?
not the lead, I got rid of them.
Yeah, that's one of our museums now.
Yeah, no, he goes down there every year. They have a reunion down there every year.
I'll go.
He has some of the relatives are buried there in Fort Washita.
Now here's the one of the buildings down there now. Now this one don't have the top on it. And they've got pits all around there where they used to hide their horses. It's something to see if you've never been there.
Yeah.
And I enjoy going down there. When we left down there, I lived joining that place, and I've lived around it for all them years.
I'm trying to think of the man's name that took the fort over when the government abandoned it, and they...
It's on there, Colbert, Charlie Colbert.
They still live in the old buildings when you lived down there?
Yeah, Uncle Charlie Colbert, now, he lived there, and he thought my dad was the only white man in the country. There wasn't nobody wouldn't say nothing about my dad in front of Charlie Colbert. Now, his boy still lives there, not in the house, but he built him one across the road, but it's still on the same place.
What was Charlie Colbert like?
Charlie Colbert was a wonderful man. If he had anything to sell, he priced it where he thought it ought to be. You didn't Jew that man down. If you tried to Jew him, it might make him mad. He's been known to force a man to take a wagon load of hogs without pay, just because you tried to Jew him. He didn't want to be Jewed down enough. But if you tried to Jew him on a horse or anything and made him mad, he'd give him to you. You better take him. And he meant that too. He was a wonderful man.
Did you know a man named Ben Colbert?
Ben Colbert. No Dubbin? Yeah.
He was a Rough Rider with Roosevelt, I think.
Yeah.
You know anything about him?
No, I really don't. But I was thinking I saw that name on here, but I guess I didn't on this. But Ben Colbert, I think, as far as I know, he was part Choctaw Indian, not Choctaw, but Chickasaw, yeah. And they were related there. I don't think you was ever named. You said Ben, man, didn't you?
Yeah, that was Ben.
Ben,
Colbert.
yeah.
How was he related to Charlie Colbert? You know?
Absolutely, I wouldn't want to say for sure on that.
You know, the building they rebuilt, you know, this is the building that they rebuilt down there.
Yeah.
Was any of it still standing when you lived there?
Yeah, this here is standing.
You know, they have the stone structure that they had, but they rebuilt that one building.
Yeah. Now, they put the old big barracks deal.
Yeah.
This is it right here. They haven't covered it. No.
But, you know, they rebuilt that one.
They rebuilt it.
Was it still standing when you were a kid?
Yeah. Yeah, when I was a kid growing up, yeah.
Does it look pretty much like it did?
Well, in a way it did, yeah. In a way it did.
When did the government abandon that place?
I believe it's 1862. It's on here, and I believe it's... Yeah. They're at the old Fort Cemetery, right up from this building, about a quarter of a mile. I've got 3 brothers buried there. And I've got a lot of kinfolks buried there.
Was Douglas Cooper still there?
Who?
Douglas Cooper? Was he still living at the fort when you were
No,
living there?
no.
I guess he already died.
When I was a small kid, I remember Uncle Charlie Colbert really living there. And I'll tell you what he had about, right behind this building, they had about a 15-acre orchard, one of the best fruit orchards that's ever in that country. And if you didn't have the money, you could just load up what all you wanted there and go on, and you paid them later. But you never did want to try to Jew Charlie Colbert on nothing. He didn't Jew. He'd make you take whatever it was and give it to you. And he wouldn't let you pay for it, but he didn't want you to, you was finished with him right then. He was a wonderful man. I went to see him. I've got some pictures. I wish I'd have looked them up. I know I've got them here. It's been 10 or 15 years ago when Charlie was living. He used just enjoyed me coming by and talking to him because he just liked my dad so well. But I never thought to look him up. I've got some here somewhere. Charlie sitting in the front of this log house in his chair. I always went to see him as long as he was living.
Do you remember World War One?
Pretty well, yeah. I remember quite a little bit about it. I remember in 1901 war, my dad had got a call to go. And at a certain time. And he had a big crop. And he had 4 head of good mules. And that morning, he had to walk about 2 miles to where they're supposed to meet, to be sent off. And I know that morning my mother got us all up and fixed breakfast. We ate, and when we left, we was all crying. And about 9 o'clock that morning, come walking back in. Never had to go. So he got by. But he was called to go, and when he went, why, I guess that's when the armistice was signed.
Yeah.
And so he come back.
Do you remember that day when they signed the armistice?
Yeah, I was small, but I remember it on account of him coming back.
Yeah.
I sure can. Because we wasn't expecting him back, and he got back in towards the noon. I sat towards the noon.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to meet now at B, Oklahoma, to be sent from B.
Where's that?
Well, from Nider, Oklahoma, it'd be about 4 miles east of Nider, or from old Fort Washita, it'd be 1.5 miles across fly.
Okay.
All them little places right in there close together. And if you was going to Melbourne, it'd be about 10 miles south of Melbourne. Or Tishomingo, you come out of Tishomingo 4 miles and turn south and go down to be about 15, 16 miles to Tish.
When was the first time you went to Tishomingo that you remember?
I can't hardly remember exactly. I was raised right in south of Tishomingo.
Tell me about, how did the town look?
Well, it looks just like it did when I first remember. Main Street runs right straight through Tishomingo. And I remember when they used to have rodeos at Tishomingo and Melbourne. They had one usually at Melbourne and one on up Tishomingo. They'd have them, those called them picnics back in the days, those hammer picnics. And I know Tishomingo's grows quite a bit, but still, Main Street and them those places looks just like it did when I was a kid growing up. Well, I stayed all night in Tishomingo and rode out of there horseback coming out here.
Did you know Bill Murray?
Yes, sir.
In the early days?
Yeah, I remember seeing Bill Murray.
Tell me about him.
Oh, well, his brother, I went to school under his brother. That's where I started school.
What was his name?
We called him Shaver, I believe. That about all I remember about Bill Murray. They used to call him Huckleberry Bill Murray. And he had farms down in there. I think it was north Tishomingo, up on the Blue River.
Yeah. Did he ever talk to you or your dad about going to South America?
It's possible my dad, but I wouldn't remember.
You remember when he went to South America in 21 or 22 and set up that colony in South America?
I remember that. I remember him talking about it, yeah. But kid like, he didn't pay it all that much attention them days.
Yeah.
It's just like with little kids we growing up here with us. They might be a listening at us, but they'll forget it from the time we go out the yard and play.
Yep.
And
Did you ever consider going to California in the 30s?
no, I really didn't in them 30s, because in the 30s when I came out here, I was doing pretty good here. When everybody's going out there, I was doing pretty good here then.
How come you were doing good and everybody else was leaving?
Well, I might have been a little better worker than some of them. I was always a guy that liked to make money and I liked to save money. I never did like to throw money away. Because I come up the hard way and without too much education, and I knew that was the only way I had to make it. I couldn't go out here and keep books for anybody or get a job like that. I had to work with my hands, my body. So we farmed here for 2 or 3 years, and that California business got so good. So the wild hair, I guess, got in my head. Oh, I leased my farms out, bought a new truck. We went to California, loaded up. Got out there, man, them people found out I was from Oklahoma, they all went to Harvard. So I went to work on that Big Die, Georgia farm there. Then afraid that I was fixing to get his job and he was rubbing me pretty heavy. So I got mad one night there. I waited, got my shift in and come in. And I told Eileen and the kids, I said, well, okay, if y'all want to go back to Oklahoma, try to be ready by 10 o'clock. Well, I've been sitting y'all for 10 o'clock to be loaded on this truck. I'm fixing to head for Oklahoma. What's the matter? And I said, well, me and the foreman had a run-in last night. I don't aim to work for these smart-headed Californians. I haven't got a better deal.
What year was that?
48.
And I came back. I had my place leased out, but I had a new truck. Me and the boys, James, we went to wheat harvest. I hit 100 to 125 a day with that new truck. And the wheat harvest done real good. We followed it. We went down to way down South Texas and come back. Seymour, Texas. We went to Seymour, Texas. James was 16 or 17 years old. He went to try a combine for this guy, and I went to driving truck or hauling grain. So we worked from there back down south of Lawton, and we had a little run-in with their foreman, and I pulled James off the combine, and this old boy wasn't going to pass that night, and I said, you going to pass that? I got after him, he run up on the combine. Well, I kicked him, knocked him down a time or two, and he got up on that combine on me. He said, I ain't going to pay you tonight. And I said, you want to pay me? And I'd go over the combine, you go down the other one. Finally, he said, if you stay down there, I'll just write them checks. And I said, get to right. So he wrote them checks out. We went into town. I met some guys there that I knew. What are you doing? I said, well, I got fired. We went in with that truck with us, so we went to work for Horn Boys. And worked a few days there and finished up, and we went plumb on into Kansas with them. And I quit them up in Kansas, right close to Nebraska line. I decided to come in, but I could have went on into Nebraska with them, but I didn't. But I went to work for one of the toughest men that ever known to be, and I didn't know it till I went to work with him. But couldn't get along with him.
Now in wheat harvest, you just had the one truck during wheat
Yeah, I
harvest?
just had one truck. I was driving it, and the boys run the combine.
What size truck was it? What size bed you had?
I had a 16-foot bed, a grain bed on it, and I'd haul 200 bushels. I'd make a 200 bushel load.
How many loads could you get in a day?
Well, I'd say from 4 to 5. Sometimes I'd get 6 loads.
The wheat harvest back then, does it compare with the wheat harvest today when they have the, they have all the people get together with the combines and the trucks and...
Well, I think so, just pretty well. Then they could load you from the. We had to catch our loads traveling just like they do now. They had self-propels, and that was when really the modern equipment just really come out good and strong about it.
How many pieces of equipment did the combine replace?
Did a combine can what mean?
How many different pieces of equipment did the combine replace in the wheat field? Because you had the binder and the...
Oh no! Oh yeah, it had
the thresher and...
It had the old time binder done their own. It accommodated it, and it accommodated the stationary thresher and the combine too. Well, the combine's the name.
Yeah. When did they first bring out the combine?
I think it was made some in the first 40s, but as well as I remember, in 48 when they got strong. But there was a few stationaries there way on the up there too, pretty well there. But them combines, when they got started, they taken over.
Yeah. In the 30s when the dust storms were so bad, how did you save your land when it was all blowing away?
Well, I was lucky enough that I kept bottom land mostly, and I didn't have that trouble. But after we moved up here, and on these places, I planted 8 rows of coffee corn and 8 rows of peanuts. 8 rows of coffee corn or 8 rows of cotton. I strip planted all the way across.
Now what does that do?
Well, your maize crop or whatever you had there, any kind of feed, it'd keep from blowing. And your peanuts would be small in between them. And your land wouldn't blow. You'd take that crop off, your peanut crop would come off first. Then that feed crop, the foliage would keep it from blowing. If you didn't, back then, this was almost a dust bowl through here at one time. It was real bad. So
They put in their shelter belts in this area?
there's lots of shelter belts here, and still some, but there's been a lot of them taken out. I didn't like them because they're taking out too much of my good land. Well, I never did use them. Now on this farm here, there's a good shelter belts. They still got some shelter belts. And that one over there, this one down here. Yeah.
How did you get the job at Fort Sill with the WPA?
Well, I started out about that time. I had to find something to do. And I was working on that kind of work here and got a transfer down there. I was foreman over the WPA job here, and I got transferred down there, and I went to working under another foreman there. We started tearing down the plane hangars, and then there's utility, and was going to hang this steel, and the boy that I worked with lived here, and I told him, I said, when they started going up that steel, I said, let's go to the top and we'll get a raise. He said, oh no, I can't work off the ground. I said, by God, I can. So I went on to the top, went to working off the ground, and I went from skill to semi-skill, and 6 months later, I went to foreman job. My boss got a better job at the West Coast. That was when everything was booming during World War I. And so he went out there and they put me on in his place. I promoted, so I worked in balance a year and a half. And I kept, I'd say from 10 to 20 men on me. Depending on what I was doing. If I was digging ditches, I'd keep 20 men. And if I was hanging steel, I didn't use too many. I just used some good.
How much money were you making there?
I think I was drawing 85 cents an hour in top wages. That was skill wages.
How did you get your first WPA job?
Well, I went to work down here at the rock quarry. That was on the WPA. And then I got this transfer to go out there. I got that job down, and I was laid off, got transferred down there.
Daddy, did you help build this gymnasium at Washita? Did you help build that gymnasium?
Yeah.
I thought you did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, on this Washita job. I worked there probably a year.
What'd you do there?
I drove a truck, hauled rock for that big gym.
School.
Where'd they get the rock?
The rock got it out of Butler Rock Quarry, about 8 or 10 miles south of Clinton. That's where we hauled the rock.
Did they have regular trained quarrymen that quarried out that rock?
No, they used WPA men. They done it by hand.
How'd they do it?
Well, that rock lays in clusters down there, and they'd go down there and take a jackhammer and drill holes in it and shoot that stuff and raise it out, and done it mostly by manpower. And they loaded my truck with manpower. And that's the way we loaded and unloaded.
You ever do any work on all of the National Guard armories around the area?
I never.
What were you doing when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, December 7th?
You remember that day? I do.
Yeah, I gotta get it straightened out though.
We were picking cotton, Daddy.
We was picking cotton.
Way up north of Hog Creek.
Yeah, on that place.
I mean,
we
south
lived
of Hog
on
Creek.
Lula, that Indian lease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we was picking cotton today. We got that report. Pearl Harbor.
What was your first reaction?
Well, I really didn't know what to do. I figured, well, old Howard's going to go to the Army pretty quick, and I got ready to getting ready for that. But I got by. Didn't have to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess a lot of the farmers they kept them on the farm, raising food.
That's what saved me from being there.
Yeah.
It sure was. Eileen's brothers went, you know. And there's a lot of them. I was right up to the next call when they shut it down.
Was there any organized work for the war effort in this area?
For the welfare?
No, for the war effort during the World War II. They had bond drives and they collected
in the schools,
metal
they
and
did.
yeah.
I was in the schools in Anadarko at that time.
What'd they do?
We knitted. We had classes for knitting, and we had bond drives. So we could bring old tires or old pieces of metal in, and they'd let us go to a show free. We saw Bambi that way.
Yeah.
Okay, now
I'm Maxine. I'm the oldest.
Okay, you're the oldest daughter.
Uh-huh.
And your last name is?
Reggio.
Reggio. Okay. We gotta get that.
Oh.
What'd you all do when the war ended? Was there a big celebration around here?
Well, yes, everybody was rejoicing. Let's see. I believe we done moved down on the river. We moved down on the river because We bought that place and moved there.
Bought that place in 43.
Yeah, 43. We moved down there.
Tell me about the earliest Christmas you remember.
Earliest Christmas. Well, we lived in Bryan County then. We lived up here on this house, and we had a neighbor lived over here, and one down here. It's pretty thick to settle. And I remember my daddy going to town in a wagon, and we didn't think we was going to get anything. The next morning, of course, we got up early. We had our stockings. Now, I was 6 or 7, because I know then, or maybe just 5. And I remember having all that candy and stuff. And as far as toys, I can't remember whether we had any or not. I don't think we did. I do remember the first little wagon we got. And it's possible it might have been that same wagon that wasn't living there. We had moved down to another farm, a mile or so from that, and we had a big bulldog. And at that time, my uncle had brought him and his wife had separated, and she gave him the 2 little girls. They was mine, and my brother older than me his age. So he brought them to our place and left them with Mother. And we had them little kids to play with. We had this new wagon, and we'd get out there playing with it. And when that dog got tired of us playing with it, he'd go take it away from it, pull it up on the corner of the house. The porch is way off the ground. So one day, maybe been 2 or 3 there later, Ted, he was pulling that wagon around the house he was going. Oh, this old bulldog taking after him, and he went to catching this wagon. He just kept going up his tongue. And when he didn't stop, he knocked Ted down. He like killed his brother. So that ended the bulldog. So he chewed Ted up pretty bad on his legs and back, and Mama got out there and beat him off with a broom. And so we still kept the dog. And about another year later, them Charlie Colbert cattle, we called them fence breakers then. That's the first time I ever knew about Jersey cattle. They couldn't keep them nowhere. They went everywhere. They was up there at our place one morning in my dad's cotton field. And he went out. He said, I'm going to take old Boss and I'm going to catch one of them. Mama said, don't put old Boss on them cattle. I said, you can't ever get him off. He wouldn't listen to her, and he called him. Get the man, the first one he got him by the nose, and over he went. Papa couldn't get him off. He come to the house. The rest of them left, and he had that one still down. He couldn't let get out. Come got him a broom handle, went down there, and was going to beat that dog off. I remember this pretty well. I was pretty small. My mother run down there and put her hands over that dog's head and wouldn't let him hit him no more. And she done like that, put him off, choked him loose and let him kept. Man, he was a mean dog. What I mean from then on, had to keep him tied. He's the one that beat up Ted, taking the little wagon away from him. He got tired of him driving it around there, and he got tired of fooling with it, so he take it away from him.
What about your grandparents? Did you know them?
Not much about them. Later years, when I was about 16, I came down to Darko to see my grandparents. And I came up on the, well, I started out walking. I walked over to Nider, about 2 miles from my place. I had my suitcase and I had it sitting on the end of it waiting for the bus to come by on that 22 highway. A little old bus come through there called Red Ball Inn. I was sitting there waiting on it, and I got over early. And here come an old team auto by me. They went down the road about 100 yards, and they stopped and went to backing up. And I said, what in the heck are they backing up for? Backed up. I said, where you going, kid? I'm going down to Darko. I said, get in, said they. Ride with us up that way. And I said, no, I'm waiting on the bus. Oh, get in, said, ride with us. So I threw my old suitcase in, and they told me where they was going. They was going to Chickasha. They lived at Chickasha, and they'd been down on Blue River on a fishing trip. And they wouldn't let me buy Coke or nothing on the road. They paid for everything, stopped and cooked a meal, and hauled me to Chickasha. And I got out on the east side of the viaduct there with my suitcase, and they went down on the east side. They said they lived there. So I went down. It's too late to get a bus. That new Chickasha hotel was brand new then. I put up in it. They take me plumb to the top of that thing. I never had been around the horn any. I was still green. Well, they tested me on several different things, but I didn't take no hints. The next morning, I caught me a bus and come on over down to Darko. But I didn't get in there till late. Couldn't get a bus out. The roads it was all muddy roads. The bus would take them 3 and 4 hours to get anywhere. But I finally got over there, and it's dusk dark when I got over there. Then I found out where my grandparents lived. I went down, and my grandma and my grandpa was there, and I think Dewey, my uncle, was there. But anyway, I knocked on the door, and I was told where the house was. I knew that was when my grandmother came to the door. And I said, well, I think I'm lost. I'm looking for a place to stay all night. Would y'all take me in for the night? She said, I just don't know. Said, I'll ask my husband. And I said, well, go ahead and ask him then. She come back and she said, yes, said we could take you in. I said, Grandma, do you know who you're talking to? She said, no. I said, you're talking to Howard Holdge. And you talk about grabbing me. She like squares me in two. She said, you little under-rascal. I was just a kid, you know, and I just happened to think of that from the blue sky. I don't know how for me to do it. Take me in. She said, Grandpa, look at here, what we've drug in. And
How old were you?
Oh, I was 13, 14, I believe, to be exact. Golly, they was tickled to death.
What were their names?
Thompsons from them. See, my grandmother, when my daddy and his brother, there was 2 girls, but they died. One of them died at birth, I think. The other one died when 7 or 8 years old. And she lost her husband, then she married a Thompson. And this was Grandpa Thompson. And then they raised a family. So there was 3 boys and 3 girls in the Thompson family. And in the Holdridge family, it just wound up with 2 boys, my daddy and my uncle. The little girl died at 8 years old. So
Grandma Thompson was a quarter Choctaw.
she was.
Okay. What was her maiden name before she was married?
Lisa, or something like that. I had that here too long ago. It's an awful funny name. I can't even call
I
it.
can't either, Daddy. I think I've got it written down at home.
What was her first name?
Wasn't her name Melissa?
Melissa.
Melissa.
And see, she wouldn't claim her Indian. They tried to get her to draw land. Her sisters drawed land. But she wouldn't draw it. She wouldn't claim her Indian. That was fun. I never thought to look some of that out. Was just what some of the rest didn't want, you know. And so I didn't get too many of the pictures that grandma passed away.
When did you first get interested in coon hunting? In coon hunting?
Well, I've been a hunter ever since I could set a trap. I kept dogs when I was 7, 8, 10 years old. I kept finding.
What kind of dogs you have?
I just had cur dogs, but they'd treat possum, skunk, or anything. I get everything I could catch to get a dime out of it. In later years, why I moved up to this country, and I used the same thing. I hunted of a night through the hunting season to make a living, trapped. And after got it kind of on my feet, the sportsman's club started, and coon dogs. When I first came here, you couldn't find a coon track from here to Anadarko in this river. Now you can find them in that peanut field over there. So, when they started what they call a coon dog field trial, well, I had some good dogs. I was the first one I went to way up in Kansas. It said coon dog field trial. Well, I had some dogs that trick coon in any man's land, and I mean good ones. And I went up there and entered them old coon dogs, and they'd come in an hour late behind them field trial dogs. So I told my wife, I said, well, I've learned something. I said, it ain't coon dogs anymore, it's racing dogs. So I went to looking around. And I didn't stay out of them racing dogs very long until I got something to win with. And I'd go out back up there the next 2 or 3 years and win over them boys. But I went to breeding their own dogs, breeding them hounds, greyhound in them, get speed. And I wanted a good, solid, quick tree dog. And if you didn't have a field trial dog come a tree in 20 foot of that tree, he wasn't considered a tree dog. You got to have them come a tree in to win, because there'd be some of them beat you there. It wouldn't tree.
Now, how is the contest set up? Or how do you win the contest?
How would you on the field trial? That's what you. Okay. You go there. There might be 100 dogs. You pay entry fees, $5 entry fees. They started out at $3, and now they've got it up to $15 and $20 and better. But $5 entry fees, you put your $5 up. If you entered 3 dogs, you'd pay $15. If you entered 1 dog, you'd pay $5. If you entered 5 dogs, you'd put $25 up. Well, they drawed them dogs. And they run 10 to a heat. And wherever you was drawed your number out of that hatch, your dog would put a number on. 1, 2, 3, right on up. And wherever he was drawed, that if he drawed in the first race or second race or third race, that's where he run. So you didn't know who you was going to run with till the drawing was over. And then you know about who you had to beat. And that's the way it went. And if there wasn't enough of dogs there and they wanted to run a few more extra heats, well, they'd cut the heat down to 8 dogs. But most of them run 10 dog heats.
How far do they have to run?
We try to lay a mile track. Say there's a tree in here. They'd go there a mile to a mile and a quarter and lay a track straight into you.
Okay, how do they lay a track?
With coon scent, with what's called a coon stick. And in front of this tree, 100 feet out here, there'd be a line, judge on each side. 100 feet apart. There'd be 3 judges here at this tree. And they truck them dogs out up here and turn these 10. You give you time to run your dog up and down it where you know where he's at. Everybody got ready and line them up. And they drop something like that to let everybody go at one time, then you jump in, kick up and go back around and beat the dogs there most of the time. But if you couldn't, you'd have somebody to stay after your dog. But first dog come through that flag, he was first line. And the next one up here hit that tree first, he'd be first tree dog. That first line dog, a lot of times, suck that tree up. It's coming. He'd be first line, first tree here. First line dog, first tree dog. Sometimes he wouldn't tree a lick here on this tree, but he's a good line dog. A lot of them pitchers and greyhounds wouldn't tree a lick. Their hounds would suck the tree out from them, but they'd beat us in. But I got to putting that good tree dog blood into the greyhound. And I've got some treeing greyhounds. And if you couldn't beat a treeing greyhound, you better keep them at home, or they'd outrun you now treeing.
Yeah. Treeing means you got to bark.
Yeah, right.
They got to come across that line.
Yeah.
A tree dog, when he crosses that line, there's a judge out each way. Well, 3 judges, 2 on one end, 1 on the other. When he crosses that, if he don't set it off, he ain't a tree dog.
We used to go coon hunting.
Did you?
Daddy and I did. We had an old blue tick. Tell me about coon hunting.
Well, that coon dog and field howling is 2 different breeds. But there's a little field howl dog that we really sucked him up with.
And what kind is she?
That's a little black and tan. He was a running machine.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's a dog we won with in California. We taken him out there that they felt sorry for, and we sewed him up out there with him. We won with this dog lining tree in the final. I taken this dog to swim. I win the swimming race. And we made pretty good money out of it, pretty good wages.
Is there good coon hunting around here?
Yeah, they still doing a lot. But I don't do any of it anymore. Got where I couldn't walk, got rid of all my dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always a poor loser. If you got a dog who beat me, and he's the top dog in the country, if you price him, you liable to sell him. Now I consider myself a poor loser, so I always used to win it, and I want to be on that top end.
Yeah. How many trophies do you have?
I'll say 11, between 11 and 12.
100.
11, 12. Yeah, I think the kids counted them way back there.
There's closer to 1,200.
Oh, I think it is too, close to 12.
Do you have any questions that you want to? Anything you can think of?
Well, I was thinking of lots of things until you asked me that.
You never did get beat very much in the time I went with you.
I presented them to this country. I found them in Colorado,
Oh, yeah, I'll tell them about
and
those.
went up there.
Those are Highlander cattle.
And
Scottish Highland cattle?
Yeah.
Scottish Highlander. He
There's
introduced
a
them
few
here.
down in here now, but they're out of my old string of cattle. Been around Bird and Chickasha.
Where'd you find them?
I found them out there by Denver from what's his name? I went up there. Well, to start with, I had a friend in California. He knew this guy.
Got back.
What made you decide to bring the Scottish Highland cattle down here?
I seen some of them up in Colorado. I was visiting up there and happened. No, I saw them in California where I've seen them, I think. I've seen a few. Colorado. He was in Colorado.
You know who these guys are?
Yeah,
Who are they?
that's
I don't know who they are, Daddy.
I don't know. I'm too forgetful anymore, makes things weird. I believe though this is Eileen's folks.
Well, that picture that's hanging on your bedroom wall, Daddy, who's that?
That's Uncle Jeff's truck in his car.
Yeah, I started to bring that in here a while ago, showing that one.
That was Uncle Jeff's
Can I go get it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You say these are
I think that's my mother's cousins. I think they're the Smith brothers.
That's a Spanish American War uniform he has on.
You know. Well, they've been real old. This way
Where are
back.
they from?
They're from down around Bryan and Johnson County when I first went in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's my Uncle Jeff's wife. That's my mother's brother.
Yeah.
Only brother she had.
You can tell he's Indian.
He lived with us till he passed away.
I believe this was my grandpa Lynn, my mother's father. He knew who this one was too, but I don't think driving a cultivator and buying mules, cutting stalks.
Did y'all like apple ice cream? Don't you have to fix it
All
up?
right.
I call it Bloomfield Academy. It was a girls' school. Was it?
Well, you see, there's a big school or two there in Tishomingo.
It's good.
It wasn't what I thought I was getting though.
It wasn't.
No.
You don't just getting strawberry.
Strawberry and I got this.
You got cherry.
Got cherry. Oh, it ain't bad, but
Strawberry been better.
What about, ever go down to Wapanucca? The old school
Yeah.
down there?
I've been there for quite a while.
Anything left of that school?
Not much. Did you ever down to that old Fort Washita?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a nice place.
I've seen the time when they was right south of that big orchard. You got fruit if you needed it. You come down there, you can get it. If you didn't have the money, you could get it. That old Charlie Colbert was a fine man. Oh, it's half a quarter in there. I've raced a many horse right up and down there. Okay. I went down tonight to our reunion this year. I always make it down there 4th of July. We have a reunion down there, but 4th of July, if that was on Sunday, we have it the following Monday. But anyway, we'd had dinner, and I was sitting around there talking to this little boy, and George Alexander, me and him raised together. He said, you going down through the fort? And I said, yeah, I'm going down there for a while. He said, boy, they have horse races, mule races, sack races, and everything down there today. And I said, sure enough. Yeah. So I tore out down there. And where they was racing them horses there, we raced there 50-some years ago, right at the same place. And I remember it real well. I had one of the fastest ponies, but I didn't have a good saddle. We was running that day with saddles on. That old saddle busted me. I plowed that ground. I had the dirt and gravel in my face and hands. Man, it like killed me. But I kept one of the best horse saddles that was around. If you had a better one than mine, you just price them between yours and mine. I just trade with you. That's the only way I figured I could beat a guy.
Yep.
Buy him out. I guess I was always a poor loser. That's the way I was by your hound.
Yeah.
You go to the river bottom with me, if you beat me, you can sell him to me.
Dad,
Didn't happen very often though.
Dad, why don't you tell him about that old gun you got?
I've got a gun here that my grandpa White had when he was a young man, on my mother's side. There was a shooting scrape over it, and that happened down around Idabel. But my dad homesteaded out here to Frederick, Oklahoma, and I was 6 months old, and that's where they lived, and Grandpa come out there and hid that gun out there. And it's been in our family ever since. So my brother Bud, he was the last one at home, and he got the gun. Well, there wasn't no way for me of getting it. But when he passed away, his wife told me, he said, Howard, said, do you want that gun? I said, you know I'd want it more than anything in the world. So she gave it to me,
Yeah.
and I've got the gun.
There's your grandfather White.
He's white man.
No, his name White, he said.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
W.R. White.
And he lived down around Idabel.
Yeah, they used to live around Idabel, Hugo, and all down in there when he's a young person. But when he passed away, he lived at Wilson, Oklahoma,
Yeah.
about 4 miles south of Wilson.
Now, my grandmother Lynn, my mother's mother, was in the run for the state of Oklahoma. She was 6 years old.
She was. Did she ever talk about it?
Well, not too much. She couldn't remember a whole lot about it, but she was pretty young.
Was that the run in '89 or '93 or?
I don't know.
They had the big run of '89, and they had the run in '93.
Let me see. I can tell you. Maybe. Because I'm going to take this one home with me. Let's go down this one.
My dad raised a lot of Capricorn then. Wasn't no maize. I never heard of maize till about 11 years. He had the big old stack. It was in the winter, come a little snow. And down there, blackbirds stick anyway, all year round. I never seen them many that winter. They just had this stack real covered. And Mama said, Jim, did your gun kill a bunch of them birds out there? And said, fix you a blackbird pie. You know, that used to be a dish for him. I don't know what it. He said, okay, we got in and he got this old gun. and the back door's facing this. He just cracked the door and sat in the chair. He pulled both barrels. Them birds just stacked on top of him. He kicked him from back, bloody as long. Me and Ted picked up birds for an hour and a half out there. I've never seen so many birds in my life. Man, it sure did kick him back. He probably wasn't holding it very tight either. Shot both birds one time. Boy, he pulled.
Good thing them birds was thick. He wouldn't have shot it twice.
Man,
Tell me about your fishing.
well, I'm a pretty poor fisherman.
I can tell by the picture. What do you use for
Well,
bait?
I'll tell you what, I always thought I was a pretty good fisherman. I've been fishing lakes and rivers and things like that. I had a friend come out of that lake with a sack full of fish, and I'd come out with one or two. And I said, one day, I said, Billy, you got a secret. I want it. What's that? Where are you catching them fish? He said, there ain't no secret to it. You just don't hold your mouth right. I said, now don't give me that stuff. I said, I want it. Oh, I said, anybody can catch them fish. I said, no, they can't either. I said, I'll be up in a day or two and bring some hooks up there. Okay. So he lived up here by Boney, and I got me 100 hooks. Went up there and he'd taken 2 pair of pliers and put the bait on them for me. So I've been catching fish ever since.
What kind of bait?
2 pair of pliers.
It's the truth. No bait.
I never put no bait on it. Get some more.
You don't use
There's
bait?
pictures of those fish.
Yeah.
That one of them pulled
He
up.
fishes with the game warden too. He does it all.
I've got him
legal.
fishing now.
How do you catch them?
I had to fix him some hooks.
Tell me again how you catch them.
I bend my hook, got that whisker turn it on him. You've heard of them mink trappers and force jumps. You may have been a trapper one time, but that's the way they do it. That's how I learned how to do that.
So you don't use any bait at all?
No. Sure don't.
Keep your hook sharp. Keep them shiny.
I've caught them.
It's the way that
I couldn't believe myself. I couldn't believe my eyes at them.
it's the way it's tied on. The hook is tied on, and the way the hook is bent.
Now how do you bend the hook?
That's the truth. And then you see those pictures. That's
Yeah.
proof of it. I mean, he catches them. My mother used to love it. She'd take those every year. They'd have that contest in Chickasha. She
Yeah.
was always winning that fishing contest. Daddy wouldn't take them down there, but she would. She'd take them out there and weigh them up.
A few years ago, when I was helping farming down here, we used to do it the hard way. We used to take off work a little bit early, get out the peanut field and hoe it. We'd go down and seine some bait and put on there, and it was sure a lot of work. It sure beats the heck out of it.
Yeah.
Here you look.
That's the hooks he uses.
So you just put a bow in it.
Yeah.
Now how does that attract the fish?
Well,
Show them how it works.
let me show you how it works. Take that pencil and roll, come down through here.
What, down?
Yeah, that's down like that. You didn't miss him, did you? Okay, try it again, see if you can miss him. get him right here every shot.
Yeah.
That whiskey turns.
Okay.
It just don't take much to turn it.
I'll tell you what, that's hard to believe. But you look at them pictures, that's where it comes.
Using on a trot line or?
Yeah, I use trot.
Yeah. Okay.
I have the game range check my lines. I don't want to get in no trouble. But I sure don't be nobody. I ain't gonna get out there. I used to have to do that. Them boys had to get bait and we'd run up and down creeks. Go out there and catch a few, not me. And catch many more this way.
You looked at all these.
Yeah.
He didn't see that book. Those pictures are,
Well, I've enjoyed this.
I enjoyed having you out. I really have.
After I finally found it.
But
It's too bad
Uh,
Michael Howard couldn't have been
kind of
here.
funny though, you know pretty well about old Washita like I do there.
Oh yeah, I used to go to, back Fort Washita was one of my favorite places to go to.
Mine too, I've done made 3 trips down there this
Yeah.
fall. I'm fixing to go back a few days.
Yeah, they've located the old trash dump.
Well, Daddy, you spent lots of nights with them too, didn't you?
Well, I used to go down there and see him when he was living once or twice a year.
But I mean, when you was a boy, you used to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about spending nights in that
Yeah,
that little building there.
Well,
Yeah, that little, what was that little building?
It was where they lived.
you see, they didn't live there then. Hathaways had that place rented. And me and Morris Hathaway run around together, and I stayed with him a lot there. And Hathaway's lived there.
What, that building they lived in, what building was that in the old fort? What was that?
The old log building,
Well, not the log building, well,
That's-
yeah.
log building.
What was that?
It was some kind of office, I think, to start with, way back there. But it's been a dwelling house for years.
Yeah. And also there's another building that's, I think, a stone building, little, not very big. They have the log house, and then there's another one that Charlie Colbert lived in when we took it over. I'm not sure what.
Well, that log house is where he lived whenever
Yeah.
he was there. He was a kid.
I've got
right there.
pictures here of Charlie there sitting on the front porch. Now that big flat rock,
Yeah.
it come from up there at the cemetery.
They did.
Yep. I remember when it was up there, and they moved it down there.
When they moved all the graves from Fort Washita to Fort Gibson, the soldiers.
Well, it had to be before my time if there's any move. And I've been down there since I was a little kid, and they ain't never been moved.
Last
See,
thing
they
I
got a military graveyard there,
Yeah.
and,
There's some Confederate graves there, aren't there?
and then down below the old fort building there, there's nothing down there where old Aunt Jane's grave is. All them's military.
Tell me about Aunt Jane. What's the story about her?
Well, there used to be a doctor there at B. His name was Peavito, Dr. Peavito. And if anybody was sick, they had to go get him with a light. He would not get out. He claimed that she'd get on behind him on that horse and this and that. But now I never did go for that. Never did believe it. But they always had to go get him if they used him. And he lived at B at that time.
Well, what would she do?
Well, he claimed she'd choke him and fainted, this and that.
Well, you mean, she was a witch?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what it's supposed to be, you see. Aunt Jane. Oh yeah, that used to be the talk of that country when I was growing up little down there. Aunt Jane, Aunt Jane.
What was the name of the town that was around Fort Washita?
It was there.
Yeah. I want to say Dokesville, but that was in Fort Towson.
There never was a town there, really.
There wasn't?
No,
Yeah, okay.
not since in my time, there wasn't. And I've been there when I was small, but
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
now